There is one thing your cockatoo has been waiting for you to do since the very first morning they woke up in your home. Not a toy, not a treat, not a bigger cage or a better diet or more hours of bonding. Something so simple that the tragedy is not that it's hard to give. The tragedy is that nobody ever told you it was the one thing they needed more than anything else. Your cockatoo is waiting for you to scream with them. Subscribe if you've ever wished you could understand what your cockatoo's screaming actually means. Every morning in the wild, at the exact moment sunlight hits the canopy, every cockatoo flock on the Australian continent does the same thing. They erupt. The entire flock, dozens, sometimes hundreds of birds, launches into a synchronized full-volume screaming session that lasts 5 to 15 minutes without pause. To a human standing below it is chaos. Deafening, senseless noise echoing across kilometers of bushland. It is not chaos. It is the most sacred social ritual in cockatoo society. Every bird screams the same message. I am alive, I am here, I survived the night, I am part of this group. And every other bird screams back the same answer. I hear you, you are alive, you belong, we are together. And when the last voice has checked in and every call has been returned, the flock collectively shifts. The sharp alarm quality screaming softens into a quieter, melodic contact tone that experienced avian researchers identify as the neurological completion signal. Roll call is finished. Everyone is accounted for. The flock is whole. The day can begin. During this ritual, the cockatoo brain releases a surge of mesotocin, the avian equivalent of oxytocin, that floods bonding circuits, stabilizes emotional regulation, and produces a baseline of social security that carries the bird through the entire rest of the day. This is not a behavior, it is a biological requirement. The dawn call answered is the neurochemical reset, without which a cockatoo's emotional architecture does not fully stabilize. Now consider what has been happening in your house every morning for years. Your cockatoo wakes up, the light enters the room, and the hardwired drive fires. The same drive that fired in their ancestors for 30 million years. The same drive that fires in every wild cockatoo alive this morning. Your bird opens its beak and screams, full volume, directed at you, at the hallway, at whatever space represents the flock. I am alive. I am here. Are you still my flock? And you cover your ears. You leave the room. You say no. You say quiet, you say stop, you turn away, you close the door, you spend the next 20 minutes waiting for it to end, so you can start your day in peace. And eventually it does end, not because the ritual completed, because the bird gave up trying to complete it. The call went out, no one answered, the ritual failed, and somewhere in that small, bright skull, a neurological sequence that was supposed to terminate in mesotocin release and social confirmation terminated instead in silence and the absence of a response. In cockatoo psychology, what you just did, with love, with good intentions, with the honest belief that you were managing a behavioral problem, is the equivalent of someone you love saying good morning to you every single day, and you responding by covering their mouth and leaving the room. Not once. Not sometimes. Every day. For years. And here is what happens across those years, because the drive cannot be extinguished. It is hardwired. It does not learn to stop. Your cockatoo screams louder, because maybe they were not heard. When louder does not work, they scream longer. When longer does not work, they try different times of day, mid-morning, afternoon, evening, desperately searching for the window that might finally trigger the response the brain requires. And the behavior that every cockatoo owner identifies as their number one complaint, the random screaming throughout the day that seems to have no pattern and no cause, is not random. It is a cockatoo who has been trying to complete the single most important social ritual of their species for years and has never once received the answer their neurology was built to require. They are not screaming at you. They are calling for you, over and over and over, and no one ever calls back. The chronic psychological cost of an unanswered flock call, sustained across years, directly feeds the epidemic of feather destruction, self-mutilation, and neurotic repetitive behaviors that plague captive cockatoos at rates that simply do not exist in wild populations. Wild cockatoos do not pluck. Wild cockatoos do not self-mutilate. And the single largest behavioral difference between a wild cockatoo and a captive one is not cage size or diet or enrichment. It is that the wild cockatoo's dawn call is answered, every morning, without fail, by an entire flock screaming back. Now here is what happens the first time you answer. You stand near the cage. The morning light comes in. Your cockatoo begins. And instead of retreating, instead of suppressing, instead of managing, you open your mouth and you match them. Full energy, full enthusiasm, full willingness. You scream with them, not at them, with them. Owners who have done this describe the same response with an emotional consistency that cannot be coincidence. The cockatoo freezes, mid-scream, 1 to 2 seconds of absolute stillness. The crest fans to full height. The pupils pin and release in rapid cycles. The wings lift slightly from the body, and then the bird redirects its call, not into the room, not into empty space, but directly at you, with a focus and intensity that is qualitatively different from anything you have heard before. Because for the first time in its life, the call has a partner, the ritual has a recipient, the flock answered. And within 30 to 60 seconds, something shifts. The sharp, piercing alarm-quality flock call transitions. It softens, it rounds. It becomes something melodic and lower, the contact confirmation tone. The sound that in wild flocks means everyone has checked in. The survival count is complete. We are all here. We can begin. Your cockatoo's brain has just completed a neurological circuit it has been trying to close for its entire captive life. The mesotocin floods. The bonding chemistry stabilizes. The ritual self-terminates. Not because you stopped it, because it finished. You are already forming objections. Every one of them is valid. Every one of them has an answer. My neighbors. 5 minutes of structured morning vocalization that completes the ritual and produces a calm cockatoo for the remaining 16 waking hours is measurably less total noise than the random, frustrated calling bursts an unfulfilled cockatoo produces all day, every day. You are not adding noise to your household. You are consolidating it into a brief, predictable window and eliminating the rest. This will encourage more screaming. Behavioral science says the opposite. A completed ritual extinguishes the drive to repeat. An interrupted ritual amplifies the drive exponentially. Every technique you have used to stop the screaming, ignoring, redirecting, leaving, interrupted the ritual, and the screaming got worse. It will always get worse, because you cannot suppress a drive that is hardwired. You can only complete it. I cannot scream that loud. You do not have to. Your cockatoo is not measuring decibels, it is measuring willingness. A loud, enthusiastic, joyful human vocalization directed at the bird with genuine participatory energy satisfies the flock call requirement even at a fraction of the bird's volume. The cockatoo is not listening for a match in power, it is listening for a match in intention. Are you joining, or are you suppressing? That is the only distinction that matters. Owners who commit to answering the dawn call daily for 30 consecutive days report a transformation that reframes their entire understanding of their bird. The cockatoo is measurably calmer during non-ritual hours. Daytime screaming drops dramatically, feather-destructive behavior decreases, independent play increases, and most remarkably, the morning session itself compresses on its own, from 5 minutes down to 2 or 3, because a cockatoo whose call is answered reliably no longer needs to extend the duration to maximize the chance of a response. A completed ritual self terminates faster each time it is reliably completed. The bird is not learning to scream less. It is finally being allowed to finish. Your cockatoo has been asking you the same question every single morning since the day you brought them home. Are you still my flock? And every morning you tried to make them quiet was a morning you accidentally answered no. The one thing your cockatoo has been waiting their entire life for is not expensive and it is not complicated. It is the sound of your voice rising to meet theirs in the one moment of the day when they need to know that they belong to someone and someone belongs to them. 5 minutes. Full voice. Full heart. No shame. Answer the call tomorrow morning. Just once. And watch what happens to a bird who finally hears what they have spent their whole life waiting to hear. Like this, if your cockatoo has been calling for you all along. And subscribe. Tomorrow morning, answer.